What's up, Pod Pals? In the next 10 minutes or less, I'm going to show our Pod Pal Andy B how to massively increase his downloads with a strategy that I call the quick and dirty rebrand. It's your buddy Adam from Podcasting Business School, and I am doing these podcast growth audits to help my Pod Pals, that's you, massively increase your downloads, hopefully double your downloads with a video that is always 10 minutes or less. All right, so let's dive on in to our featured show, the Andy B Show. All right, so our Pod Pal Andy B submitted his show on Threads. I put up a Threads post today. I said, hey, I'm going to do a YouTube video. I want to audit some shows. Post a link, and Andy posted his link. All right, so the first thing that we look at when we do a podcast growth audit is the name of the show. When I look at the name, I have three rules. I want to know what the show is about. I want to know who it's for, and I want to see at least two keywords. All right. So what is this show about? It's a video game podcast. It's right there in the title. So I know what it's about. Who is the show for? To me, that's the key thing. So I think we could sneak in another keyword and we can get really specific. So this doesn't get lumped in to all the other video game podcasts. All right. So we need to figure out who this show is for. And right now, keyword wise, we have one keyword: video game. Now, the other thing that's really important to look at is the first word of the show. The first word is potentially your best keyword. If you can get a keyword as the first word of the name of the show, it's like rocket fuel for your SEO and your organic discoverability. So right now, the first word of the name of the show is which is like, it's not a good keyword. Nobody searches for and it has nothing to do with the keywords that we want to be representative of with this show. So things to think about. We need who it's for, and we need to get a keyword in that first slot. If we can do this, Andy, you are going to massively increase your downloads. The strategy I want you to consider is what I call a quick and dirty rebrand. Here are the fixes that I would suggest. First off, the second part of the title, a video game podcast. I would love to see, as I know from your host description that we'll get to in a second, it's for adults. So I'll put a video game podcast for adults or for adult gamers. If we get the word gamers in there, that's a second keyword also. So I would strongly consider making that second part a video game podcast for adult gamers. All right, that gets two keywords. And now we know what it's about and we know who it's for. My quick and dirty rebrand technique, if you choose to follow this, what you would do is go into your podcast host, Libsyn, Buzzsprout. I don't know where you host your show, Spotify, I don't know. And with the listed name, I want you to flip-flop the second part of the title and the first part. So you don't have to do this on your art. You don't have to do this. You can still verbally call it the Andy B Show, but where you host it in the title line, flip it. So the first word is, I actually want you to take A off there. So it'll just say video game podcast for adult gamers / the Andy B Show. So again, your podcast art won't change as far as the name of the show verbally, still called the Andy B Show, but that black text, everything will be flipped over. So the listed name would be video game podcast for adult gamers / the Andy B Show. So basically your new title becomes your subtitle. And you don't have to announce this. You don't have to do any sort of a big rebrand promotion. That's why I call it the quick and dirty rebrand. We move the word video game, which is your number one keyword, into the pole position, the first word keyword position. I've seen clients do this. One of my clients did this, and she 4x'd her best 7 days ever, and she had over 200 episodes. So this is very, very powerful. So that's my quick and dirty rebrand. Let's look at some other components of your show. Let's look at the host description. All right, this podcast is for you, the adult who still loves to play games. So we're calling out who this is for. We want as many keywords as possible. I got some keyword suggestions, but video game, gamers, adult gamers. I would name some video game systems here and even some very popular video games. I would love to see a second paragraph or a second section started off where you go, this show is for you if you find yourself asking questions such as, and I want you to list 5 to 10 Google questions that your ideal listener will be searching for in Google. So like, what are the most popular video games for 40-year-olds? Or what are the most time-efficient video games for adults to play on their lunch break at work or something like that? I mean, you know these questions better than I do. I want to see 5 or 10 Google-style questions listed at the bottom of this. And I want to see more keywords in the top. All right. Now, let's look at your art itself, okay? I feel like we need to dress this up a little bit. I think adding the who it's for. So a video game podcast for adult gamers. To me, that's the most important text on the art. I would actually minimize the Andy B show just a little bit, and I would put some color behind a video game podcast for adult gamers, like a shadow box or something. And then you got some open space. I would throw like a PS5 remote control image or something up there in one of the corners that doesn't distract from the words. I don't want anything behind the words. Just let's dress this up just a little bit so it calls to people. And I want them to know this is for adult gamers. That's what makes your show unique. I want to shine a spotlight on that so that adult gamers are like, oh, this isn't for my 15-year-old son. This is for me. So that's where you're unique. Let's shine a spotlight on that. All right. So I want you to do the quick and dirty rebrand. We need to get some keywords in there. We need to update that host description with keywords. I am going to show you some suggestions for keywords that I came up with. So just a few things to consider. Obviously, video games, gaming, different gaming systems, PS5, Xbox, Nintendo Switch. And then I would add in some names of popular games, which you're doing in your episode titles, which I think is smart. But let's actually get those in the host description along with the gaming system names as well, because people may be searching for those specifically on Apple, Spotify, YouTube for sure. So add those keywords in there. And I think that's really going to help, Andy. All right. If you enjoyed this video and you want me to audit your show, make sure you're on my newsletter list. I'll put the link in the description for this video. And if you're on my newsletter list, I will put out a little announcement saying, hey, I'm going to do some more podcast growth audit videos. Fill out this form and I will select from there. All right, Pod Pals, I'll send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. If you enjoyed this video, hit that heart button, like it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video.